$1 million deal with point guard D'Angelo Russell. It's a 2-year contract. Brook Lopez has signed a 2-year, $18 million contract with the Clippers. The Grizzlies and Jaren Jackson Jr. have agreed on a $240 million contract extension over 5 years. The Nuggets are trading Michael Porter Jr. to the Nets for Cam Johnson. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters, or condo with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Switching to Progressive is a game-winning call. And that reminds us of other game-winning calls in the history of sports.
It was a doubleheader in August and really hot inside the concession stand. So instead of waiting for people to come to me, I figured I'd walk around yelling, "Hot dogs here!" And that's how I became the first hot dog vendor in sports.
Okay, not really a game-winning call, but it was a good call. You can make one too. Switch to Progressive and you could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.
Now there's a new way to take charge of your blood sugar. Introducing New Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula from the makers of the nation's best-selling garlic supplement. New Garlic helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels with clinically supported levels of garlic, plus a custom blend of vitamins and minerals. And it's odor-free. Take charge of your blood sugar with New Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Use as directed.
If you want to be an alpha,
you've got to get the winning edge.
It's kind of a necessary ingredient if you want to lead the pack. So mark your territory
with the winning edge.
You're in the big leagues. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
It is the opening day of a new month. It is now July, which means it is a month of football. Today is the first day of July. On the final day of July, it will be our first NFL game of the year, albeit a preseason contest known as the Hall of Fame game, which means as we welcome you to Football Full Circle, live right here on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. Football will be played this month, and football will be played at least one game for the next 8 months in a row. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. We are glad to have you here on FFC on this first day of July, where all of a sudden, Scott, we've got a ton of moves around the National Football League. A lot of focus yesterday on Pittsburgh. A trade between the Steelers and the Dolphins and a potential next trade of TJ Watt. We'll break that down. And a trade as the Dolphins try to recoup some tight end talent and a guy we well know but did not play football last year in Darren Waller. So much to talk about, Scott, on this month of football, as July 1st is here on FFC.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? Even the dog days of summer for baseball really doesn't get that this year at all. With the late Stanley Cup championship because of the Four Nations tournament, NBA going as long as it possibly could, Game 7. I mean, generally baseball's got a month and a half or so where it's kind of got its own little sports world, but really not anymore. And we're getting more and more NFL trades. Not a lot. You know, it's not like baseball or basketball. You're not getting that, but you are starting to, over the last couple of years, Ben, get some trades. We've had some deals. The Pittsburgh trade makes a little bit more sense today from the Dolphins standpoint, picking up Darren Waller from the Giants out of retirement, as you mentioned. I still don't like it as a Dolphin fan, but at least it kind of makes a little bit more sense. But, some football news to talk about over the next couple of days and couple of weeks, hopefully.
So let's start with that, Scott. The news today that happened within the last 45 minutes or so. Darren Waller is coming out of retirement to play for the Miami Dolphins. Of course, Waller stepped away from the sport at the end of the 2023 season, did not play last year around the National Football League in 2024. And Scott, you might be thinking, well, if the guy was retired, why do they need to trade for him? Well, if you retire but are still under contract, the team you were most recently playing for still owns those contractual rights. So the Miami Dolphins, after shipping away Jonnu Smith to Pittsburgh, now at least have a little bit of tight end help for Tua Tagovailoa. Darren Waller being traded for. The Dolphins are sending a 2026 sixth rounder to the New York Giants. In return, the G-men sending back Darren Waller and a 2027 seventh round pick. So Darren Waller now makes his way to Miami out of retirement and playing for the Fins.
Yeah. If you break it all down, it comes down to the Dolphins got Minka Fitzpatrick and Darren Waller and about $10 million, maybe a little bit more, actually, really, about $15 million. And they lose, obviously, Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. If you figure what Smith ended up signing for, getting a one-year, $12 million contract, they're going to pay Waller about $5 million, so they're saving $7 million there. And then the difference between Fitzpatrick and Ramsey's contract, about $10 million. So they're saving about $17 million. I don't think they're getting the better players by far. But, if the bottom line is to save money, which is a sad sign if you're a Dolphins fan, then the Dolphins made out. But if you're really trying to win, a Super Bowl like you think they would be with Tyreek Hill and Tua, I think they took a step backwards. But like I said, at least Waller, really, Ben, when you think about it, Waller's really had one good year. And right. I remember I had him on my fantasy team that year. I was a midseason pickup, and he was phenomenal for the Raiders. He looked like he was going to be the greatest thing in the world. He was getting 20 points every week or whatever it was. But if you outside of that 1 year, it never really happened with the Giants when they traded for him. So I'm not sure what you're going to get, a year plus removed from football out of him.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Scott. Of course, Darren Waller, a fascinating story. When he entered the National Football League with the Ravens in 2015, as Waller has well documented his own personal struggles and his story, he was dealing with drug addiction while playing for the Ravens, got clean, got sober, came back to the NFL, and started playing for the Raiders. In 2019, he had 90 grabs in more than 1,100 receiving yards with 3 receiving touchdowns, finishing third in AP Comeback Player of the Year, which led to that breakout and dominant season the year following. 107 grabs, 1,196 yards, and 9 receiving touchdowns, the lone Pro Bowl season of his career. Then his final 2 years in Las Vegas, played a total of 20 games, was banged up in both 2021 and 2022, Scott, before he was dealt to the New York Giants, I believe, for a second or third round pick. It was some early draft capital in return, and again, did not amount to much in his lone year with the G-Men. 12 games, 74 targets, 52 grabs, 552 yards, and just 1 receiving touchdown. He was not that dynamic top 5, top 10 tight end that maybe he appeared to be in that Pro Bowl campaign back in 2020. Does he move the needle for Miami? Does he really add much value for the Dolphins? Probably not. Is it worth a gamble for a 6th round pick and $5 million on 1 year to try to solidify a tight end room where you sent your lone Pro Bowler of a season ago and Jonnu Smith to Pittsburgh? I guess so.
Yeah. But, Miami, I wouldn't think, if you're going to take different cities and you say, okay, guys had drug and alcohol problems, I don't know if Miami would really be at the top of that list, though. Maybe he wants to, look at temptation and be able to stare it down and say, nope, I'm not going to go back down to that route. I don't know if that had anything to do with him sitting out last year, but it doesn't seem personally like to be the ideal spot for him. But $5 million is a lot of money, though, Ben. You say, you want to sign up for like 2 or 3, okay, but if the end goal is to save money for the Dolphins, I don't know if I'm giving a guy $5 million even, to come out of retirement, hasn't played the year, who knows what kind of shape he's in. But that's the Dolphins these days. They're more concerned about saving money than putting a winning product on the field.
32 years old, Darren Waller will turn 33 in September. Not exactly at the tail end of his football playing days, but not a spring chicken either. Scott, he did play in Las Vegas and then headed to the Big Apple in New York. So I think being around temptation is something that Darren Waller probably knows well and has beat those demons, no doubt about it. He did say the reason for his retirement was back in November of 2023 in that lone season with the Giants. Had a health scare, made him question his future, what he wanted out of his life. He did also reveal in a podcast a few weeks ago that it was a game against the Bills in 2023 when he was playing for the G-Men and blocked like on 5 plays in a row, got to the sideline after the drive was over and said to himself, I'm basically a glorified fullback. Why am I still trying to do this? So in terms of the want and desire to play football in each and every one of its physical aspects, you do wonder. Scott, you are a Dolphins fan. Miami with a trade yesterday. They add Minkah Fitzpatrick, a guy they drafted back in 2018. Still a Pro Bowler, although maybe not living up to the All-Pro standards the last few years in Pittsburgh. They get back some draft capital, but they do send away Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey. It feels like the Dolphins are in this weird limbo area where 2025 could be ugly, the fourth year under Mike McDaniel. Over 6.5 is one win total. Under 8.5 is another one. Both are minus 180 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. You play the averages. That's about a 7-10 record, the expectation for the Dolphins. They have the third best price in the AFC East. Scott, on your favorite team, how do you feel about Miami entering this upcoming campaign?
Not optimistic. Now, their schedule's pretty easy. I must say. They don't have like any kind of gauntlet schedule there. But, it's, Tua's overdue for an injury. I don't think they're going to get to the postseason. Could they get 8-9 wins? Yeah, they might be able to do that. But I'm not optimistic at all, Ben. I'm really not.
We'll talk a little bit more about the Dolphins, of course, involved in a large trade yesterday that we've had 24 hours or so to react to as well between the Steelers and the Fins. Plenty to discuss around the National Football League on this first day of July. Up next on Football Full Circle.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. And we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin.
He just gives that vibe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. Jury deliberations got underway Monday in Sean Diddy Combs' federal sex trafficking trial and hit a snag almost as soon as they started. By the end of the day, however, jurors indicated that they were making progress, weighing complex charges that could put the hip-hop mogul in prison for life. The first day of deliberations saw a flurry of notes from the jury and Combs and his supporters bowing their heads in prayer in the courtroom, but no verdict. State and federal prosecutors have charged more than 320 people and uncovered nearly $15 billion in false claims in what they described as the largest coordinated takedown of healthcare fraud schemes in Justice Department history. Law enforcement seized more than $245 million in cash, luxury vehicles, cryptocurrency, and other assets as prosecutors warned of a growing push by transnational criminal networks to exploit the U.S. healthcare system. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash.
Find what you love what you find. A total wine and more. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines. Walk right through the door. It's all here to explore. With guides in the know and prices so low, it just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love and love what you find.
Drink responsibly, B21.
Now there's a new way to take charge of your blood sugar. Introducing New Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula from the makers of the nation's best-selling garlic supplement. New Garlic helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels with clinically supported levels of garlic, plus a custom blend of vitamins and minerals. And it's odor-free. Take charge of your blood sugar with New Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Use as directed.
There's something you should know and always remember.
SportsGrid does not increase luck.
We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck,
go find a horseshoe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on FFC. It is Football Full Circle on the final day of June. A large move around the National Football League, Scott, with some follow-up here on the first day of July. As we shared, Darren Waller coming out of retirement to play for the Miami Dolphins. The Giants and the Dolphins agreeing to a small trade to send Waller a 2027 7th-round pick in exchange for a 2026 6th-rounder to Miami. So the Dolphins yesterday, Scott, traded away Jonnu Smith, Jalen Ramsey, and a 2027 5th-round pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers. In return, Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 2027 7th-rounder make their way back to the Dolphins. Scott, you are our resident Dolphins fan. You just said you're not overly optimistic about entering 2025. Let's start with this deal yesterday from Miami's perspective. How did you feel about what the Fins decided to do?
Yeah, I didn't like it. It's more and more a Jonnu Smith trade, Ben. This is how I view it. If you're Pittsburgh, if you want Jonnu Smith, Miami's telling Pittsburgh, then you got to take Jalen Ramsey. Sorry, that's the deal. And I think Pittsburgh probably hemmed and hawed on that, which is why it took so long, because we've been talking about this for over a month. And I think eventually Pittsburgh said, okay, you know what? We'll take Jalen Ramsey and his $25 million guaranteed contract off your hands, Miami. You give us Smith. And the Dolphins said, okay, and then we'll take Fitzpatrick. Because why would you take, if you're Pittsburgh, a $26 million man, which is what you're going to have to pay him because of the little trade kicker that's going to get thrown in there, and get an older guy, oh, by the way, and Jalen Ramsey, and trade away Micah Fitzpatrick. You're only doing that because you want Jonnu Smith. So I applaud what Pittsburgh did. I don't necessarily agree with it, but at least they're trying to win now. What Miami's doing, I wouldn't be surprised, Ben, since from what I'm seeing, Fitzpatrick's contract's not guaranteed. I wouldn't be shocked if he's not on this football team. If the bottom line for the Dolphins is to shed salaries, which is what they did in that deal, I wouldn't be shocked at all if they just said, you know what? I had a lot of Pittsburgh fans laugh and say, oh, you got Micah Fitzpatrick. He's been a dog for the last 2 years. Don't be surprised, Dolphin fans, if he's not on this team, and then you're going to walk away with this trade with basically nothing except saving money.
Yeah, and Scott, it's an interesting point with Micah Fitzpatrick, right, who was drafted in the first round by Miami back in 2018, early on into the second year of his career, traded by the Dolphins to the Steelers. He was a 3-time All-Pro safety for Pittsburgh. The last few years, despite being a Pro Bowler, probably not one of those 5 best safeties or so in the NFL. In essence, you are trading a 28-year-old Micah Fitzpatrick for a 30-year-old Jalen Ramsey, albeit they play two different positions. Ramsey this past year, although not a Pro Bowler, still played in 17 games for that Dolphins secondary, and now joins another veteran in Darius Slay, as well as a younger player in Joey Porter Jr., I believe, entering his third year out of Penn State for that Steelers cornerback and defensive back room. But really, it is a Jonnu Smith deal. The only Pro Bowler last year in Miami, and what was a dismal and disappointing season for the Fins. And that's where things get interesting for me, Scott, about what the thought and the outlook is for Miami entering 2025. It is year number 4 under Mike McDaniel. First 2 years under McDaniel, a playoff berth in each, even battling for the AFC East crown down to week number 18 in 2023 against the Buffalo Bills. They came up short. They had to play in a frigid game in Arrowhead, as we know, did not go their way. Last year, injuries to Tua Tagovailoa once again, despite being paid in the offseason, reared their ugly head. So, Scott, if Tua is healthy, and that's the largest if perhaps for Miami, you do have Tyreek Hill, you do have Jalen Waddle, you now add in Darren Waller, Devon Achane still back there in the backfield. There is some offensive talent, but for a team expected to win anywhere from 6 to 8 games, that's not necessarily a playoff team in the AFC this season. What do we think Mike McDaniel is really going to see here in year number 4, and how hot would you say his seat is in South Florida?
I'd say it's pretty hot. Now, he just got an extension before last season, but we're talking NFL owners who are billionaires, right? So, but I would think, because it's for the first time, I've been saying I've been an anti-McDaniel guy from the outset, Ben, but forget about me. This past season was the first time that you got a lot of Dolphin fans, a lot of Dolphin media members that are beginning to wonder about Boy Wonder Jr. here, that he's not quite the genius. The numbers are so overwhelming about how negative the Dolphins are against better teams on the road in cold temperatures with backup quarterback. He's been exposed. I mean, it's going to sound cruel, but he's basically been exposed as a fraud, McDaniel. He's done nothing with this offense. Without Tua and the main guys. And he's done nothing against better teams. He's done nothing on the road. So, he's on the I would think that if he doesn't get this team into the postseason, and I don't think they will, he probably won't be around next year.
Yeah, it is really interesting, Scott. And as we have shared numerous times, when Miami has been an underdog in the first 3 years under Mike McDaniel, they are 5-18 straight up. They are 9-14 against the spread. If Miami now has a win total of over 6.5 at -180, under 8.5 at -180, you can expect them to be an underdog probably more frequently in 2025 than maybe being the favored side. That's not been a recipe of success for the Dolphins. And of course, there is some talent offensively, but health is an issue for Tua Tagovailoa. Frankly, if the Fins Scott goes 7-10, I think Mike McDaniel is looking for an offensive analyst job or a coordinator job somewhere else next season. And of course, this has not rectified the issue of the Dolphins failing to win a playoff game since the year 2000. I think it could get a little bit off the tracks this year for the Dolphins.
Yeah, that is the longest. Think about that. That's 25 seasons. That is the longest drought in the NFL, Ben. The third longest in the four major sports when you do hockey, basketball, baseball, and football combined. I mean, think about all the bad teams that we've had over the years in all these different sports. And this is the third longest. I mean, it's just, they have to win now. They have to, if otherwise he's gone.
Yep. So that's the Dolphins side of the last 48 hours in trading away Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey, and now trading for Darren Waller. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. A big deal in notoriety, but is it truly a big deal changing the Steelers' outlook for 2025? That's next.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here.
And win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 1987, New York City radio station WFAN launches the first 24-hour all-sports radio format, setting off a change in the way fans get their sports fix.
Welcome to the first broadcast of WFAN All Sports 1050. You're sharing a part of radio history with us today. This is the beginning of the first 24-hour-a-day sports station.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
To understand the consequences of technology advancing faster than human evolution, University of Texas researchers have created an electronic face tattoo, wirelessly monitoring brain waves and pupil dilation, detecting mental strain without bulky headgear. To understand the stress of workers in professions like truck driving or air traffic controllers, where mental lapses can have serious consequences. Ouch. The big question, does the tattoo come off?
Why does it say lab specimen on your forehead?
Follow me at Capalbo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Money line.
Throw in the towel in the AL Central right now. It's 11.5 game lead. Look at the run differential. Detroit is a plus 99. The team in second place, which is the Guardians, minus 47. Everybody is negative there. Everybody seems like they lose every day except for the Tigers. Isn't that crazy? Like the Tigers are running away with it.
Catch Money Line with Donnie Rightside and Kevin Walsh. Weekdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network. There comes a point when the chips are down.
To coin a phrase.
When the only thing you can do is stop and wait. Do you want to face that moment prepared?
Or rely on luck?
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
A big trade yesterday around the National Football League that focused on the Steelers and the Dolphins. We just hit on Miami's aspect of that deal. Now let's focus on the Steel City. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Scott, acquiring Jonnu Smith, who should help out offensively, and another weapon for Aaron Rodgers at his disposal. And Jalen Ramsey might not be at the peak of his powers, but of course still a really solid cornerback in the National Football League to help a defense that has been incredibly steady each of the last 3 years. But Scott, some additional reporting around Pittsburgh following the trade yesterday around the contract status of TJ Watt, who did not show up to mandatory minicamp for the Steelers, is hoping for a new deal. And as ESPN's Adam Schefter reported yesterday afternoon, Multiple teams around the NFL are reaching out to the Steelers to inquire on any potential trade packages around Watt. Now, you get this report. The natural question is, well, who's putting it out there? Is it Watt and his reps trying to garner some more negotiating power for his new contract? Is it the Steelers trying for their own bit of leverage? Does it even make anything seem realistic in terms of TJ Watt actually being even close to that trading block? Ultimately, I do not believe Watt is going to be dealt at any point of this offseason because, Scott, you can argue how influential Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith are going to be, or the additions of Darius Slay or DK Metcalf, and arguably most importantly, the quarterback spot in Aaron Rodgers. But the Steelers are trying to make that run to be a true contender in the AFC. And if you think Pittsburgh is going to do that, TJ Watt's probably the main piece they need in-house and happy.
Yeah, this is one of the downfalls of signing a 4-year contract when he did. He's 31 years old. He's at that point where, you know, do I want to risk another year and maybe not have the production? Or even if I do, I'm still going to be 32 next year. Who's going to give me a 3-year contract now? So it makes sense from his standpoint. But if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm just saying, you know what, I'm not moving you. You want to sit out? Go ahead and sit out. Knock yourself out. You're going to lose a year. You're going to be 1 year older. So I think he will be a Pittsburgh Steeler. It's not a bad move from Pittsburgh from yesterday's standpoint, Ben. You know, you could agree or disagree, but I will say this, at least they are trying. You know, if you're going to go all in for Aaron Rodgers, as they are, then at least, as the Jets did, not saying the Jets didn't, but at least they're giving him weapons. You know, a DK Metcalf to me is an upgrade over George Pickens. Jonnu Smith added to the tight end room with the double tight end with Pat Freiermuth should be terrific. You know, Caleb Johnson for Najee Harris, you know, at worst, I think is even, but I think that could certainly be an upgrade there. So he's going to have the weapons like he had with the Jets, and his numbers were decent with the Jets. It's just, you know, the final 5 minutes when they were down, and that's how games ended in the NFL, he just didn't produce. The Jets offense just didn't produce time after time after time. Mm-hmm. If he would have able to produce in those final couple of minutes, man, they would have won 4, 5, 6 more games. That's how close their games were. So maybe that last year was a fluke. Maybe Rodgers can. The question you ask yourself if you're a Steeler fan is this team better as it's suited right now? DK Metcalf, Jonnu Smith, Caleb Johnson with Aaron Rodgers, or should they have kept Russell Wilson and gone one more year with Russell? That's going to be the debate when the season plays itself out.
It's a good question, Scott, because I think you would look at this offseason and ask Aaron Rodgers versus Mason Rudolph, and the obvious winner to that conversation, even at 41, entering year 21, is still Aaron Rodgers. By a landslide, that could be argued at this stage of his career. Compared to Russell Wilson, that's another wrinkle to the conversation. Because, Scott, I approach it this way. After the deal yesterday in acquiring Ramsey and Jonnu Smith, did it move the market? Did Pittsburgh's price to make the playoffs flip to even money or even minus money? No, they're still plus 140. Did the win total go up by a game? No, it's still 8.5 with a little bit more juice on the under than that of the over. Did their price to win an AFC championship change? No, not really. In fact, their Super Bowl price grew longer by just $1, 43 to 1 to 44 to 1. That's probably just the market reevaluating itself as we get closer to training camp. The needle mover for me is going to be Aaron Rodgers in terms of elevating that ceiling. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers have made the postseason 4 of the previous 5 years with guys like Mason Rudolph and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and Mitchell Trubisky and Duck Hodges and Kenny Pickett playing the quarterback spot. So the idea that they could be a 9 or 10 win football team and flirt with a wild card spot with Aaron Rodgers is not surprising in the slightest. But that's not the quest for the Steelers this year, and certainly not behind all of these moves that are being made. There is a recognition now in the Steel City. They need to win a playoff game for the first time since 2016, and they need to start making that deeper postseason run once again. We'll talk about that and how TJ Watt, of course, fits into that conversation. Up next here on FFC.
The winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. The Dallas Mavericks have agreed to a $13 million deal with point guard D'Angelo Russell. It's a 2-year contract. Brook Lopez has signed a 2-year, $18 million contract with the Clippers. The Grizzlies and Jaren Jackson Jr. have agreed on a $240 million contract extension over 5 years. The Nuggets are trading Michael Porter Jr. to the Nets for Cam Johnson. The Knicks have reportedly interviewed South Carolina women's basketball coach Dawn Staley about their head coaching vacancy. Staley said before she doesn't want to coach men's basketball, but did interview for the Portland Trail Blazers head coaching position a few years back. In her newest contract, there's a clause that would allow her to leave for an NBA or WNBA head coaching or assistant coaching position without any financial penalty. The Knicks are also scheduled to have a second meeting with Mike Brown, the unanimous choice for NBA Coach of the Year after his first season with Sacramento. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters, or condo with Progressive. That's the Sports Grid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Find what you love, love what you find. A total wine and more. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines. Walk right through the door. It's all here to explore. With guides in the know and prices so low, it just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love and love what you find.
Drink responsibly, B21.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
You're listening to Sports Grid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the Sports Grid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going all in with Aaron Rodgers at the quarterback spot and adding pieces on both sides of the ball to try to be a playoff contender around the AFC. And Scott, playoff contender in Pittsburgh can mean a variety of things for this highly successful franchise. You would think they judge themselves by Lombardi trophies like back in 2008 and 2010. They have not reached the AFC Championship game since 2016. In fact, that postseason, Scott, the last time Pittsburgh even won a playoff game, despite many playoff appearances in the last decade or so. So, with Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf and adding Caleb Johnson in the draft and the trade for Jonnu Smith, pairing with Pat Freiermuth and adding Jalen Ramsey and hopefully at a certain point extending TJ Watt to bring him back as well. I think the question, Scott, is not 9-8, 10-7 playoff team in Pittsburgh, but can the Steelers put some fear in that 20-1 price to win an AFC championship? What's your answer to that?
I'm going to say, believe it or not, yes. But if it's going to happen, Ben, we're going to know in the first 6 weeks of the season. Because after the first 6 weeks, then their schedule is just crazy. But the first 6 weeks, including a bye, so first 5 games, Jets, Seattle, New England, Minnesota, Cleveland. You know, you're going to have to go 4-1. Even I don't even think 3-2 is going to cut it, because then you got Green Bay and you got Buffalo and you got Baltimore obviously twice. You got at Detroit. It gets tough. You got the Chargers on the road. It gets really tough after that. So if they don't go 4-1, then they're cooked. But, you know, I want to say no. I really do, because Aaron Rodgers is such a dope, right? I mean, but as we get closer and closer to the season, I just buy in just a little bit more. Maybe, just maybe, you know, he completes these fourth quarter comebacks that he wasn't able to do with the Jets. You don't have to score 20 points. Not that he had to score 30 points last year. Jets defense was halfway decent. But, you know, the Steelers defense should keep them in that, score 17 to 20, 24 points, and we're going to win game. You know, if you want to go negative on the AFC, look at it from the standpoint, the AFC East, you got Buffalo, but who knows what you're getting out of Miami, Jets, and the Patriots, right? Let's go AFC North. If Cincinnati didn't make the playoffs last year, maybe they don't make it again this year. Browns aren't going to make it, so you got just Baltimore. AFC South, you want to go negative, right? Colts, Jacksonville, Tennessee, all stink. You only got Houston. And then the AFC West, maybe the Broncos come back a little bit. I think the Chargers will be good. Obviously, the Chiefs will be good, but that leaves a couple of wild card spots open. Now, can they win on the road? That's the problem. Are they going to be good enough to win at Buffalo, at Baltimore, at Kansas City, which is what they're going to have to do to get to the AFC Championship game eventually? I don't know, but at least that they have a crack of making the playoffs. I got a feeling when everything is said and done, it's going to be the same old Pittsburgh Steelers team. They'll make the playoffs. Maybe they win the first round game, and then they'll probably lose in the second round to one of those three teams I mentioned, Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City. I don't think they're at that level.
Yeah, Scott, it's a really fair point, right? And on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now, you can bet on the stage of elimination for all 32 teams around the NFL. Will they make the playoffs first and foremost? If they do, will they be ousted in the wild card round, the divisional round, so on and so forth? For Pittsburgh to lose a wild card playoff game, as they have 4 times in the last 5 years, is plus 390. Feels like a pretty good bet in terms of plus money. I would not be surprised by any means to certainly see Pittsburgh come late November and a good majority of December be in the hunt graphics we see on every TV broadcast around every game to be in that playoff race. Heck, I would not be surprised to see Aaron Rodgers lead the Steelers to 10 wins and a playoff spot. They have done that with far less at the quarterback position. For the Steelers to be an AFC Championship caliber team, I still think they are a few pieces away, mainly because I think Aaron Rodgers, at this stage of his career, does have some limitations at the quarterback spot. But going to be around and going to be above 500? Sure. I think the question becomes then fascinating, Scott, because we saw it last year as Pittsburgh got beat bad to start off the postseason once again. It was the story around Mike Tomlin. They were 10-3 entering the final few weeks of the season. They dropped their final 4 games to end at 10-7. There was a time the Steelers were in the running to be the 1 seed in the AFC, and of course got beat bad in the opening round of the postseason. And I think many Steelers fans started to see the writing on the wall. Consistent success is great under Mike Tomlin, and we have been so pleased to have that for nearly 2 decades. But we haven't developed the quarterback spot in the tail end of Ben Roethlisberger's career that came to a close in 2021. We haven't really done much for it in terms of the 3 years after. Kenny Pickett was a swing and a miss, now on his 3rd NFL team. Neither of the guys we tried to get to fill those voids, Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, really provided much more than a Band-Aid. Scott, I even think if Aaron Rodgers leads Pittsburgh to 10 wins, and we believe this will be Rodgers' final year regardless, it's not going to be enough to satiate what Steelers fans want in terms of success. And I think there will be a lot of clamoring for Mike Tomlin's job entering his 20th year in Pittsburgh, as crazy as that is to say. But expectations are a thing that are based on context, and they don't just change team to team based on, hey, did you make the playoffs? Check, you're all good. The Steelers have made the playoffs. The Steelers have been above 500. 24 other teams around the NFL would take that for 18 consecutive years. Yeah. It might be a little bit different in Pittsburgh if that is just the ceiling of their success once again.
Yeah, the Steelers have the problem, the Steelers fan, that has the problem of not realizing there's a difference between expectations and hope. I don't think the expectations for the Steelers is very good, right? I mean, the over-under in Vegas tells you that. They're not expected to win the Super Bowl. Expectations is on Buffalo, it's on Baltimore, it's on Kansas City. But there is enough there that gives the fans hope that they can compete. And that's been the case for the last several years. But hope is not expectations, and they keep on living this dream of maybe, and it's not happening. If you throw in Kenny Pickett, for whatever reason, does well in Cleveland, or Russell Wilson, for whatever reason, does well with the New York Giants, and then you throw in maybe Pickens having a great year down in Dallas, then you really have the, what are we doing here? How come, Mike Tomlin couldn't? Boy, could you imagine, honestly, take a step back. I don't care if they go 0-17 this year. I mean, could they really fire Mike Tomlin? Maybe it's like, we ask you to step down, Mike. You got to take one for the team. We'll bump you up to the front. I mean, something like that. But actually fire him?
Yeah.
Well, that would be something, huh?
It would be something, Scott. It really would. And it would probably come with a weird, bittersweet, sour taste in the mouth of even the most devout Steelers fans that are hoping for higher levels of success. Scott is also right. Pittsburgh does not have one of the 7 best prices to win the AFC. The reason I highlight 7 is because we see 7 playoff teams now in each conference, our 4 divisional winners and 3 wild card spots. Quickly, Scott, on the TJ Watt scenario. Of course, he has been in Pittsburgh all 8 years of his NFL career. He has become the face of the franchise following Big Ben, and there is no doubt about it. He has led the NFL in sacks 3 of the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, he has played at least 15 games. He has finished top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year voting, winning the award in 2021. You would think if the Steelers are fully all in, that leads to a contract extension for Watt at a certain point. 3 guys make more than $35 million at the edge rusher spot now in the NFL. Myles Garrett the most at $40 million. Danielle Hunter second most. Max Crosby third most. All of those extensions, Scott, happened at a certain point this offseason.
Yeah. And if you're a Steeler fan, if you think he's going to be around for a couple more years, then I don't know why you wouldn't do it now, to tell you the truth, Ben. Because next year it's only going to go higher, right? I mean, nothing's going lower in the NFL these days. So sign them now, and if it's a salary cap situation, just you know how to work these things. You just shoot it off, make it a 5-year contract, and put a back end in it if you have to.
And you would expect Watt to be around, despite entering year number 9. The only year Scotty has played fewer than 15 games because of injury, 2022. So 7 of the 8, he has been largely out there. Other news around the NFL comes your way up next.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie.
Just saying.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. Jury deliberations got underway Monday in Sean Diddy Combs' federal sex trafficking trial and hit a snag almost as soon as they started. By the end of the day, however, jurors indicated that they were making progress, weighing complex charges that could put the hip-hop mogul in prison for life. The first day of deliberation saw a flurry of notes from the jury and Combs and his supporters bowing their heads in prayer in the courtroom, but no verdict. State and federal prosecutors have charged more than 320 people and uncovered nearly $15 billion in false claims in what they described as the largest coordinated takedown of healthcare fraud schemes in Justice Department history. Law enforcement seized more than $245 million in cash, luxury vehicles, cryptocurrency, and other assets as prosecutors warned of a growing push by transnational criminal networks to exploit the U.S. healthcare system. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash.
This weekend is what summer's all about, and Macy's July 4th sale is going on now with deals on everything you need to celebrate. Hosting? Turn your backyard into a party destination with 40 to 50% off outdoor entertaining. Beachbound? Turn heads in this season's hottest swimsuits, sundresses, and more. Getaway with the kids? Superpower their summer with 25 to 60% off toys from Nerf. Plus, don't miss Macy's 4th of July fireworks live on NBC and Peacock. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Switching to Progressive is a game-winning call. And that reminds us of other game-winning calls in the history of sports.
It was a doubleheader in August and really hot inside the concession stand. So instead of waiting for people to come to me, I figured I'd walk around yelling, "Hot dogs here!" And that's how I became the first hot dog vendor in sports.
Okay, not really a game-winning call, but it was a good call. You can make one too. Switch to Progressive and you could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, not available in all states.
Remember when you were thankful you could just get AM and FM?
Things have progressed.
Now even an app on your phone can give you a 21st century thrill with that little drop of heaven called
the deposit notification.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. Now, it might sound a little bit strange to say that on this first day of July, it is a football month, because on the final day of July, it is our first NFL, albeit preseason game of the year. So for the next 8 months in a row, up until March of 2026, we will have at least one football game played in that month. And a ton, of course, starting in August, because got some significant dates on the calendar here in July. Today is the start of the month on July 12th. The first rookies will start showing up for training camp, courtesy of the Chargers and the Lions. being the first two teams to play in a preseason game in Canton, Ohio on July 31st in that Hall of Fame game. The first vets show up to training camp on July 16th. After that, the following week, by the end of July 23rd, 100% of our teams and players around the NFL will have reported for training camp. Of course, that is if they are not holding out and do, in fact, show up. So it sounds crazy to say, but already here in July, the offseason is almost in the rear view. Training camp in the preseason that is coming very, very soon.
Yeah, and that's why you start hearing stories like TJ Watt, wanting money.
Yeah.
This is when the players do their holdouts. This is when it really, really counts, at least coming up. They make their wishes known now. So, and then which quarterback battle is going to start, whether it's down in New Orleans. You could say with the Giants, who supposedly it's not Russell Wilson's job. You never know. Jackson Dart there, Jameis Winston. There are a decent number of quarterback battles around the NFL this year as well. It should be a lot of fun to kind of keep an eye on.
And Scott, there are some odds out for that right now, courtesy of the FanDuel Sportsbook and others. And I know we had discussed this as mandatory minicamp was about to start and voluntary OTAs. 4 teams feature a quarterback battle currently on FanDuel. None really have changed except in one spot. Tyler Shuck, after the retirement of Derek Carr, now the second-round pick, and the 26-year-old, or soon-to-be in September, 26-year-old rookie, a -310 favorite to start for New Orleans. Joe Flacco remains the slight favorite in front of Kenny Pickett to start for the Cleveland Browns, week number 1 in that very jumbled and confounding quarterback room. Russell Wilson, still a very strong favorite at -1,400 to be that week 1 starter for the New York Giants. Week 7, Week 13, Week 18, those numbers might be different as we look at the rookie Jackson Dart. But Scott, entering mandatory minicamp now just a few weeks ago to end out the offseason program for NFL teams, with the news around Anthony Richardson for the Indianapolis Colts, that AR was dealing with yet another shoulder issue, would not throw at all during minicamp. His offseason timeline now looking a little bit uncertain, despite the fact that Shane Steichen was saying they are hopeful to have him back by the start of training camp. Daniel Jones, who of course was signed this offseason by Indianapolis, 1-year, $14 million deal, became that strong odds-on favorite to be the week 1 starter in Indy. I'm not sure if anything has really changed in the last few weeks except some time and rest for Richardson, but he is now back to that slight favorite at -130. Danny Dimes at -106. Ultimately, Scott, who's that starter week 1 in Indianapolis?
I think it'll be Danny Nichols, as I like to call him. Personally, I would use Anthony Richardson, Ben. He's been in the league long enough. You got to find out what you have. Unless the Colts organization says, you know what we have. He stinks. That's it. We're done with him. So, but otherwise, if it's an even thing, or maybe it's even 60-40, Danny Nichols, I'm still putting Richardson in there. I invested a high first-round draft choice on the guy. I know he's failed a little bit, but I want to see him go rock bottom fail. Like, you know what? We're completely done with him. And if that's the case, that's the case. If they know that already. But ultimately, what they think, they're going to do, I think they'll start Danny Nichols. I think Danny Dimes there will end up being a starting quarterback for the Colts.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Scott. I completely agree. I actually agreed with the market movement on Daniel Jones because of the shoulder issue for Anthony Richardson entering mandatory minicamp. In midway through June, you might be saying, well, all right, he'll take some time off and he'll be ready to go by the time training camp comes at the end of July. Not for a guy that had shoulder surgery after only 4 games in his rookie year, now just 2 seasons ago in 2023. But if health is not a grave concern for AR, I agree with you. I think Indy has to start Richardson, unless you are just punting on a failed experiment that was the 4th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. Richardson has not been great in his 15 games in his 2 seasons of his NFL career. Last year, Scott, the worst passing and completion percentage of any qualified quarterback in the NFL. The only one sub 50%, it was 47.7. And Richardson, who played in 11 games of quarterbacks to play double-digit games around the NFL, Richardson was the only one with a completion percentage under 60%. Again, it was 47.7. He has more interceptions than touchdowns in his NFL career, 12 last year to 8 touchdowns to be exact. It has not been great, but unless you are willing to say, we're done, it's not Richardson, we'll put the Band-Aid on with Daniel Jones and see if we can win some games in this division. That is not exactly a gauntlet around the NFL in the AFC South to see what Shane Steichen can do. Then, Scott, I think you have to start Anthony Richardson again, assuming that he is nearly 100% healthy.
Yeah, because I would rather, listen, it's a real tough spot, man. It is. I mean, to want to bottom out, because who wants to do that? But the alternative is living in purgatory. I mean, are you really going to win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones? I mean, I don't think so. We watched him here in New York. He had his 15 minutes of fame the one year. I get he was great. They win in Minnesota, but ultimately, he's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. So you start him, right? And maybe you get to the playoffs. Maybe you go 9-8, maybe 10-7. In that division. Maybe you get a shot, but does that mean, what's it going to take for the Colts to say, all right, we're going to re-sign you, Daniel Jones, and we're going to bring you back, and we're going to give you $35 million a year, whatever the case may be. Minnesota kind of lived with that last year with Sam Darnold, and look what they said. They said, we're not going to give you the team, Sam. We're going to give it to the rookie that we don't know about. All these teams. Pittsburgh, with Aaron Rodgers. What's it going to take for Aaron Rodgers to be there next season? It's a tough spot for these clubs.
Yeah, it really is. I love how Daniel Jones has become the idea of stability for Indianapolis as well. A man known for the most ridiculous of turnovers during his young playing days with the Giants. More on FFC up next.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the tickets.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channel dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Moneyline at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Imagine combining the exciting investment opportunity of cryptocurrencies with the power of artificial intelligence to maximize your IRA, 401k, or other investment funds. Listen, if you're looking for ways to accelerate your retirement growth, Block Trust IRA has market-leading strategies and solutions for all levels of investors, from $1,000 to millions. And they partner with Bitcoin Magazine's #1 crypto trading fund in the world to maximize your returns. Plus, their team of IRA specialists is here to help you roll over your IRA or qualified retirement account to the new world of cryptocurrency investments. So make this free call right now to set up your account and learn more.
800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. That's 800-434-5313.
It's stark but true.
You can either listen to SportsGrid for strategies, odds, and more, or you can pay your bills by digging in your couch cushions for change.
Just be sure to wear gloves.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. So, who will be the starting quarterback in Indianapolis, assuming Anthony Richardson is nearly 100% healthy by the time training camp and week number 1 come around? The odds makers right now slightly favored Richardson to win the quarterback battle with Daniel Jones. The Cleveland Browns, Scott, have a very interesting quarterback room this year. That is, Deshaun Watson recovers from a second Achilles injury, rupturing it early last season, and then re-tearing that same Achilles tear, is set to miss all of 2025, it would seem. So enter Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and the two rookie quarterbacks that were drafted first in the third round, Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon via Oklahoma and UCF, and of course, Shedeur Sanders in round number 5. Joe Flacco is currently the favorite to win the quarterback job, to be that starter week number 1 at plus 110, but only 90 cents back is Kenny Pickett, a 2-to-1 price. Dylan Gabriel, Scott, third best at 5-to-1. And Shedeur Sanders brings up the rear here at 7-to-1. When the Cleveland Browns begin the 2025 NFL season, who will be under center for Cleveland week number 1?
I think this is going to be a surprise. I'm going to say Kenny Pickett. It can't be the rookies. It just can't, Ben. Their season opener, Cincinnati at Baltimore, Green Bay at Detroit. It can go off the rails real quickly for the Browns. I don't think you want to put a rookie in there, no matter how successful they may have looked in the preseason against those 4 teams. That is tough, right? So why not Flacco? I just think that they see the future with Flacco when it's not there. Maybe it is with Pickett. Maybe they hit lightning in a bottle. Maybe he's learned over the last couple of years. Last year, winning a Super Bowl and basically on the bench with the Philadelphia Eagles. He would, to me, be the one guy on that team that, okay, you know what, if you make some progress, you'll be our guy, next season, if in fact, out of the 2 veterans anyway, him and Flacco, that, okay, we can live with a 10-7, 9-8, maybe even 8-9 record if they see some progress. So I think it'll be Pickett, 1, have him more than likely fail, and then maybe go to one of the rookies. I don't know if Flacco will be on the team, to tell you the truth. If the 2 rookies, one of the 2, show a little something, then why keep Flacco? Because you got Pickett as the backup, and you're going to get Deshaun Watson eventually this year. There really is no reason for Flacco to be on this team. I said the same thing about Winston with the Giants. If Jackson Dart shows a little something, then I can see the Giants saying, you know what, Jameis, great to have you, but we don't really need you, so we're going to trade you because we already got Russell Wilson and we got our backup with Jackson Dart. There's no way you're going to play. So I don't know. I don't see the avenue for Flacco to play if they're starting Pickett and one of the other 2 guys, shows a little something.
There's not a lot of teams, Scott, that even carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Maybe 2 on the active 53-man and a guy on the practice squad that you could always elevate if you needed that emergency third quarterback at any juncture. So that's really interesting for a quarterback competition right now that features 4 guys. I agree, Scott. I don't believe Gabriel nor Sanders are going to start week number 1. Could either guy or maybe even both QBs start at some point during the rookie season and maybe both get out there? I would say so, but that would be interesting to see if they're even kept around long enough to have that opportunity. Like you, Scott, I would start Kenny Pickett if I am Kevin Stefanski. Joe Flacco is 40 years old. Joe Flacco has played 17 years in the NFL. He has been kind of that guy called in reserve roles the past few years to still play consistent football. But again, he has his limitations. And it's not like he spent all of 2023 in Cleveland. He started their final 5 games of the regular season, went on an absolute tear, got Cleveland to 11 wins, and they lost in Houston in the opening round of the playoffs. It's not like that lifer like Flacco, who spent 11 years in Baltimore, back to save his old franchise. He was in Cleveland for a couple of months, if even that. I don't think it should be Joe Flacco. You traded for Kenny Pickett. Now, you didn't give up a first-rounder, a day 2 pick, heck, even a 4th-rounder. I believe it was a 5th-rounder in exchange to Philadelphia. But if you believe Kenny Pickett has any upside, to me, Scott, he is your answer to start for the Browns week number 1.
Yeah, he makes the most sense. He's the one that has the upside. He's the one that's got the experience. Yeah. Like I said, that's a gauntlet, a 4-game gauntlet, 2 of those games on the road. So, yeah, I think it's going to be Pickett. And like I said, I don't know if Flacco's going to be actually on this football team.
It'll be interesting to figure out what Joe Flacco does. And right now, he is the favorite to be that starter for Cleveland week number 1. A confusing quarterback competition, I am sure, unfolds this summer in Cleveland. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. That does it for Football Full Circle today. The show returns tomorrow, noon Eastern time on SportsGrid Radio.
Now you've done it.
You found the advantage for gaming, odds,
and more.
But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.